And this involuntary action can be, you breathing, your heart is beating, your food is getting digested, so that is anyway happening. So there is no escape from physical effort for doing your karma. The next question that came up was that how can we possibly give up the mental effort involved? That was the next question that Arjuna had asked. And the answer was that um, he basically said that you cannot stop the work of senses. The question that was asked was, can we stop the mental effort by stopping the work of senses? Lord said, no, you can potentially stop the work of senses forcibly. For example, when you're doing fasting, you can stop the work of one part of your senses. However, stopping the work of senses does not mean that your mind will stop working. Your mind will constantly work. And so, anyone who forcibly takes their senses off the sense objects, but their mind is dwelling in the sense objects continuously, Lord has called such people hypocrites. So, this is not an option. So, Lord is basically saying, please don't even think about stopping your sense organs or your sense organs from working with their sense objects. The word is you work with them and not indulge in them. So then the next question arises that, okay, so I can't give up physical effort. I am not supposed to stop my senses from operating with the sense objects. My mental activity will go on going. Then how do we, how can we, how should we do this activity? What is the way to go forward? Because action is always happening, and that action is happening because and it is always happening under the aegis of gunas, right? Prakriti is ruled by the three gunas, and those gunas are constantly making us do an action. So then the question is, if we always have to do action, then how should we channelize this action so that it does not create bondage? And a step higher, the next question becomes, how can we use this action for our ultimate welfare, our ultimate shreya? How do we do that? And that's what we will learn as Lord takes us to the next few shlokas.
All right. Kakuli, would you like to read?
Yes. So I'll read the connection for Shloka 6 first.
Yes, please.
Okay. The question arises as to how, then, it is possible to ward off the binding result of actions while undertaking all the duties of life. This point is clarified by the Lord.
Yastvendriyani manasa.
Yatvindriyani manasa.
Yastvi.
Yatvindriyani manasa.
Ya, sa.
Yatvindriyani.
No, there is a sa after ya. There's a half sa.
There is a half sa and a half ta as well.
Yeah.
So,
it's
Okay.
stu.
so yes, ta.
Stu- Yes, Yastvindriyani manasa.
Yeah. Niyamya rabhate Arjuna.
Niyamriyabhate Arjuna.
Niyamya
Niyamya
rabhate.
Niyamya Rabate Arjuna.
Very nice. Karmendriya karma yogam.
Karmendriya Karme Yogam.
Asakta savishishyate.
Ashakta sa Vishishyate.
Yeah. Ya means jo, who. Svi, kintu, but. Indriyani, the senses. Manasa, manse, with your mind. Niyamya, vash mein karke, controlling. Arabhte, rabhte is acharan karta hai, walks or behaves, walks in the world or behaves in the world? Arjuna, karmendriya, indriyo, sari karm indriyo dwara. All the sense organs, using all the sense organs. Karma yogam, karma yog, asaktaha, not involved, not engaged. Sir, he, vishishyate, shresht hai, is special, is the best. You
Right,
can read.
Alex.
But the man who controls his senses by his mind and engages in the yoga of action through the senses of action is definitely superior.
So here he's making it quite clear, right? As Tuvina said in the introduction, action does not stop. Mind does not stop. The senses does not stop. And as long as we have a body, none of this will stop. So what he's saying here is the only thing that changes is how we do it, how we perceive things, and with what bhav, with what intent we engage in the actions. So in this shloka, he talks about two elements. One is the man who controls his senses and his mind, right? So we've he will they'll elaborate the example of the chariot, right? But we've talked about that a few times. That if you let the horses loose, then they'll happily run away to a ditch. All five will run in different directions, and the chariot will break and the charioteer will fall. But the reins represent the mind, and it's the charioteer's presence when he realizes, hey, the horses are going off course or they might fall off a cliff. He will use the mind to reel in the senses to change the direction, right? That's the very important part of the charioteer for you to move forward. And that represents our intellect. Our intellect has that important and pivotal role to control our senses through the mind so that we choose the right direction forward. And the right direction is liberation, right? And the second part, so we'll first read the first part, then we'll come to the second part.
Okay. Uh, the senses can be controlled only by the mind. In the Kathopanishad, the human frame is likened to a carriage in which the intellect is like a carriage driver, the mind is like the reins, and the senses are like horses. Just as a driver keeps control over the horses with the reins, in the same manner, the determinative intellect acting through the mind can keep control over the senses. If the control is lax, the horses tend to leave the straight path and turn towards green herbage of the wayside, totally unmindful of the danger of dumping the carriage, its drivers, and the master in the ditch. In the same manner, the sense, if not kept under control of the mind, stray from the path of rectitude and run towards the object of their desire, unmindful of the disaster to which they lead their master, man. This is the reason why the Lord emphasizes the superiority of one who, while devotedly performing all duties, keeps the senses under strict control and practice karma yoga while living one uh, and practices karma yoga while living one's worldly life.
Yeah. This line here, unmindful, right? The unmindful of the disaster to which they lead their master. This is an experience we've all had. And I'll tell you my personal experience of when I have it is with eating for me, because I love it. And I realize when I'm in that act of eating and I'm really enjoying it and I'm giving in to my senses, in that moment, it tastes fantastic. And I feel fantastic. And I feel totally worth it. As soon as I'm done and I get up, I'm like, oh, jada kha liya. I ate that last piece was too much. That last chapati was too much. And the next day, when I feel like my pants got a bit tighter, then I'm like, oh boss, that was totally not worth it. Totally not worth it. Now this is where your intellect is constantly observing the effects of what the senses does. But you can observe in this example that when your sense is indulged, they don't care about you. They don't care about your well-being at all. They only care about the sense being fed.
Likes and dislikes. They only care about likes and dislikes. I want more of what I like, and I don't want anything that I don't like.
So um, on this, there's another example that comes to mind, right? I read this post this week by Milind Soman. Everyone knows Milind Soman, right? That superstar model uh, from India, right? And I've been following him for a while, and he wrote a post about what he eats every day, and he wrote that his breakfast every day is 5 pieces of fruit. His lunch is dal chawal with like four different types or three different types of vegetable. And for chapati, he has two sabzis with for dinner he has two sabzis with 4 to 5 chapatis or six chapatis. And he runs 20 to 30 kilometers every day. He eats non-veg, I think, once a month, like one piece, drinks alcohol once a year or once or twice a year. And he says, this is what I do day in, day out. I don't eat food outside till as long as I can avoid it. I just don't do it. Now, if you look at that person's bhav, right? If you look at what he's doing at an action level, it is you and I will say it's really hard to do. It gets boring. Yeah, you want more flavor, you want this, you but imagine Milan Soman's mental makeup, where he has so much reverence for his own body. He has reverence for his own health and long-term health, that he's able to control all of his senses and not cave into it, right? For a body to function at peak performance of 30, 40 kilometers, which he does for pleasure, um, and he controls all his senses, imagine the reverence and the purpose with which he's living his life on the daily basis, right? And that's commendable. Um, but that was an example that came to my head about
That person is special, right?
yeah, that person is special. He's superior because he has his senses in control. Now, the same Milind Soman example, I will expand to the second point of the shlok, which is yoga in action. So, firstly, yoga means what? Connect. And action means being in action, the work, the duty. So, karma yoga, which is yoga of action, means connecting to divine through your duty. That's what it means. So, coming back to Milind Soman's example, about how many years ago? About 6 years ago, he started a company called Pinkathon. And I think it's the only event in India which is focused only on women, Pinkathon. And his entire purpose was women are neglected from sports in India. And women don't have an outlet to do sports because they have so much responsibility when they become mothers and they start working, etc. So he said Pinkathon is a movement to help women be healthier. And he became the ambassador and everything else because, I mean, he's attractive to women, right? Uh, and today that event, before the pandemic at least, was in 21 cities and about 3 lakh women in India participated in it. Now, this is this man's individual purpose of intent that he had of reverence for body and health, which he practices himself, he's now connected that to divine by saying, I will bring it to as many people as possible through a commercial organization, through all of that. But he's created that opportunity for so many others. And within a few years, you're talking about 300,000 people, women, connecting to his purpose, right? And because he sees that potential, he sees that divinity in everybody, his reach, a circle of influences, his circle of influence has expanded so wide, right? He is fully in what we talked about earlier. He has full alignment in thought, word, and deed, right? We talked about in the previous shloka that you need to be aligned in your thought, in your word, and your action. And we gave the example of the Zen monks and stuff. So Milan Soman's a person at the thought level, bhav level, he's very clear. He has that reverence for the body. At the word level, he's creating that in the world. At the action level, he's doing it for himself and for others. And when you start learning the Gita and you start reading people's stories, you start seeing there are so many karma yogis around us. They may be reading the Gita, they may not be reading the Gita, they may be doing it out of different scriptures that they read, whatever it is, but you'll start seeing these examples and you'll realize why certain people shine. And that's the superiority that they are reflecting, is that they're able to bring this divinity to a lot more people. Yeah. Yeah, you can continue reading.
Renounce not the world, but self-conceit in action and allurements in the result. Merely engaging in diverse activities is not karma yoga. Karma yoga is, in fact, a way of performing duties so that the activities do not result in compulsive obligations, but on the contrary, guarantee more and more freedom.
Yeah. So the basic physics law, right, that we've all studied, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The same thing in karmic law. Every action has a consequence. There's no getting away from it. So the question that Arjuna is asking is, how do I create? You're telling me I have to work. You're telling me I have to do my duty. But how do I do my duty so that there is no consequence? How do I liberate myself from this cycle of cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, right? And uh, and in that line, he actually says it as well. It's a way of performing duties. So, we've talked about the four hierarchies, right? The hierarchy, the purpose, bhav, action, object. You, the purpose leads the way of why you're doing an action. The bhav, which is intent and emotion, uh, sets the tone in which you perform that uh, action. The third is the action level, so the actual physical transaction. And the fourth is the padhar, the object of that transaction, right? So, karma yogi, a way of performing duties, essentially refers to aligning yourself to purpose and the bhav with which you do things. Today morning I was getting ready, like 9:30 or whatever it was, and I was like, Sunday, I don't need to gel my hair, or I don't need to put deodorant. Like, it's all Sunday, we're at home, no one's coming, no one's going, I'm not going to do it. And then I realized, oh, but I'm actually going to be sitting in front of the Gita, invoking divinity and talking to people to invoke the divinity. So with that reverence, I have to do it with that right reverence. If I don't do it, if I don't show, if this is my chance for him to see me, do I not want to put my best foot forward? And I immediately said, no, no, no. I properly got ready and I came out, right? And if you bring that reverence, if you bring that bhav and that purpose in every action, that action itself will become so beautiful. Every action of yours.
So you're dressing up for him and
I'm
not
dressing up
for
for him.
others. Yeah.
I'm doing his work. And if he sees me through this reflection, then great. This is my moment to make food for him. This is my moment to do my sadhana for him. So let me do it properly. Right? So it's the way of performing the same duty, and a duty as mundane as getting ready. Yeah, continue reading.
The first step in this direction is to abjure all senses of self conceit while doing any action. The justification of any activity should be only that it is an essential duty, and so the aim of an action should be only the Lord's pleasure and not the fulfillment of any desire. By continuous practice, the sense of doership in actions is completely eliminated.
Yeah. So,
Some,
um, okay, I think continue reading. We'll cover this in the end.
Sometimes an action is performed simply because the performance itself is enjoyable, or there is an expectation that its result would be enjoyable. In karma yoga, both of these ideas are given up, and an act is performed only if it is enjoyed by a consideration of duty. This too is accompanied by a conviction that it is being done with the strength given by the Lord and for His pleasures. Only when an action is done in this way, without expectation of the result, it can fall in the category of karma yoga, and such a performer of actions has been termed superior by the Lord.
Yeah. So, very quickly, I wanted to point out two things here. The first is um, the justification of any activity should should be only that it is attention. Sorry, should be only that it is an essential duty, and so the aim of any action should be only the Lord's pleasure. What is the Lord's pleasure here? What does it mean? Lord's pleasure basically means purpose. The purpose of every action, is it creating a some good for everybody around you, or is it creating a some bad? Are you operating from a win-win mentality in that purpose, or are you operating from a win-lose mentality? Right? So Lord's pleasure here and purpose always identify why you're doing something. Does it create greater value in every action you're doing, for not just you, for everyone around you? And think about it. If everyone around you is benefiting, do you benefit? Yes. If you work for the company and you work with the best intent for that company, not for yourself and your promotion and your bonus, if the company performs well, do you benefit from it? Yes. Naturally, no, because you're part of that system. If you are making the world a better place, you live in that world, so it's become better for you too. Right? And the second piece, which is by continuous practice, the sense of doership and action is completely eliminated. So this is it sounds very daunting because we are so attached or close to our own ego and our sense of like, yeah, I created this and I did this and me. But over a period of time, when you start aligning yourself to purpose and the higher purpose of an action, and through reading the Gita, you will realize you're not even doing that action. You're giving up your sense of doership because you realize so much of life has come to you without you doing anything for it. It's been His blessing. It's His blessing that you're born in India with the family you had. It's His blessing that has brought you to a situation that is comfortable and all of us are healthy and safe in a world where millions are suffering. It's a blessing that we have homes and we're clean and we have the opportunity to read together. And so much of this is just happenstance for us, right? So when you come on this journey, you start realizing, you start initially giving up your doership. You said, I'm aligning myself to the purpose. I'm doing it with that reverence. What will happen will happen. I can't control that part of the result. Yeah. Okay.
I
Um,
just one question here. So every action should be performed considering that it is duty, right? But there are a lot of things that we do in our daily lives that really cannot be likened to duty. A lot of things are just done for pleasure.
give
Hobbies,
me give me an
cycling,
example.
hobby, I don't know, giving a small surprise to our loved ones, cooking sometimes. These are things we do for pleasure. They are not necessarily duty.
So I'll take each one of your examples. Cycling. You're doing it because of two reasons. One, either it makes you healthier, which means it keeps your body fitter and your mind more active for you to go back and do your duty. Or second, it could be pleasure. So you're not doing it strenuously, but you're giving your mind a break so that when it comes back to task, it can be focused, right? So
So, in
each,
that context, mind and body, your body is actually a temple of God. Because who is the dweller of your body? The dweller of body is the God Himself, right? The capital S self. So, when you start looking at your body as a temple of God, how do you keep the temple of God? You're supposed to keep it clean. You really spend a lot of time decorating it, right? So, you will spend time to give it the right nourishment. You will spend time to keep it active, to keep it healthy, and everything that you do to keep it healthy and strong. Now, the same action, what is the purpose? Because you're viewing it as a temple, and you need it in this space so that it can be used as a tool in the service of Lord. Or are you developing that six pack so that you can go topless on a beach? They are two very different purposes with the same action, and that will then determine what is the consequence of the same action.
and also remember, karma yogi is the scenic route. So we're completely allowed to like, not allowed. It's okay for us to sit and watch TV and watch a little bit of Netflix if that's what re-energizes you to be able to go back and do your duty. But if you're sitting and watching Netflix and not doing your duty, or binge watching till 4 a.m. and waking up um, not fresh to work, that's when you've overindulged in the pleasure.
So it's perfectly okay to say, continue with the same example, go cycling, not purely for maybe exercise, but even for pleasure.
Yeah.
You enjoy it, and the next day you look forward to it because, well, it's not just an exercise, but at the same time also a pleasurable activity.
Yeah,
And
there's
that's what.
nothing wrong with pleasure. There's nothing wrong with pleasure at all. It is part of what makes us human. It is given by Lord. It is about how you approach it and how you do that activity and how much you do that activity. And are you going to go cycling when you actually have work to do? Then it's an escape. Or are you going to, after you finished your work and you need a little downtime, that's when you're going to go cycling or
Or
watching TV or whatever else you want to do?
or the cycling example, if you cycle every day at 5 to 5:30 as your re-energizing activity, okay, uh, one particular day you cannot go
For
because
whatever
for
reason,
whatever
yeah.
reason, and you get really upset that you cannot go, then you're attached to that activity.
So do that pleasurable activity without being attached to it. Very, very important too. Good point. Yeah.
So do that activity and be aware of the purpose that it's re-energizing me. And the days you won't be able to do that activity, you will come back to that activity with even greater reverence.
Like maybe it's raining in the morning, or maybe you're required for some other act. You have to do some work in the morning, and so you're not able to do it. It doesn't take away you. Either you'll find another way to re-energize yourself because you can't go cycling because it's raining outside, or because you have another duty to do. So you will do that duty with the same seva bhav and know that you will find time for cycling some other time.
Thanks, thank you.
Rishab, read.
Smita? Smita, will you
Yeah,
repeat the action?
yeah. Thus, declaring the renunciation of external effort to be impossible and propounding the superiority of Karma Yoga in performance of actions, the Lord proceeds to explain why performance of duties is necessary.
Niyatam kuru karmatvam
Niyatam kuru karmatvam
कर्मज्यायो ह्यकर्मणः
karmajyayoha karmana.
कर्मणः
Here,
ह्यकर्मणः
ya karmana
शरीरयात्रा पिचते
sharira yatra pichate
न प्रसिद्ध्येद कर्मणः
na prasiddhaye karmanah.
नियतम is always, kuru do, karm action, tvam you, karma again action, jyayo is superior to, better than, here karmanah in action, sharir yatrapi, sharir body, yatrapi, sharir yatra is your the body that is helping you in this journey,
Maintenance of food.
that will come after. Api is also, cha and, te is that, na no, prasidyed maintenance, karmanah action. So you'll understand the meaning as we read.
Perform your assigned duties, for action is much better than inaction. Also, without engaging in action, even the maintenance of your body will not be possible. Three reasons why performance of duty is necessary. In this shlok, three reasons have been given why performance of duty is essential. The first reason is that even if someone does not desire to perform actions, some action or the other will keep on being performed. For no one has the freedom or the capacity not to act. The only option is to perform essential duties and those actions which are not forbidden or vain. The second reason is that for forbidden acts results in frightful distress and the results of vain efforts is indeterminate. Therefore, the only option is to perform only those acts that fall in the category of duties. Duties are basically those that are laid down in the scriptures. But obviously, it is not always practicable to look to the scriptures for guidance. And so, virtuous acts which are in accordance with social traditions can easily be taken as prescribed duties. The third reason is that engagement in activities is necessary for sustenance. It is good to be active not only for earning a livelihood, but also for keeping the limbs and mind healthy.
So Rishabh, your question is being addressed here in the third point, performance of duty to keep your mind and limbs healthy.
Yes, I see that.
This is why it's amazing, right? The questions that arise are the questions that are in the mind of all of us as Arjunas. And we are following Arjuna's journey here. So the questions that come to us will get answered along the way.
Basically, the differentiation point is, when you do some action for pleasure, how you feel post that, whether it energizes you and makes you confident or it drains your energy. So that's how you kind of decide that which one is a good action and which one is not good for your life.
So you've now come to Shloka 9. So we'll talk about that.
And also, that's a very good cheat sheet.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good cheat sheet. If you do something and after that you feel guilty about it, bad about it, then you know you've indulged beyond because you have that capital S self who's constantly telling you what is right, what is not right,
Yeah.
right? And that it comes out in the form of that guilt or shame for having done something or feeling really energized and happy that you did something, right?
Yeah, right.
So
Basically, the bhav with which you go into the action and how you feel about it afterwards. The two of them together are
yeah.
an excellent way to figure out what you're doing is the right, basically as per your duty or not. Right?
Right. So end of the day, if you are following the path of karma yoga, you will be like the Lord is saying, you will always be in the space of bliss, happiness, because you're constantly connected to Him. And if you're connected to Him, there is no space for sorrow, because sorrow comes from darkness and He is light. So you will always stay in that sambhav, happiness, satogun. You will feel energized. Whether your body is exerting physical effort or not, it doesn't matter physically what is happening. You may be doing a lot of hard work physically. You may not get enough sleep, and yet you will be in a state of happiness and calmness and equanimity that makes you know that tells you that yes, this is the right space to be in. On the other hand, you or you may be doing something really pleasurable. You're out on a trek, you're on a hike, you're watching Netflix. End of it all, it leaves you feeling energized and happy. It doesn't matter physically what you're doing. On the other hand, again, doesn't matter physically what you're doing, it can leave you quite drained, whether it is a lot of rajoguni activity related to office work, but that makes you irritable and angry and upset with yourself, with others around you. Or it could be even an activity, a supposedly pleasurable activity like hanging out with friends or going out for a walk, but you come back and you're still irritable and upset. You're upset with everyone who's walking alongside you and saying, oh, this person's doing that and that person's doing that, right? So physical activity has no meaning. It is the mind, and it will tell you whether which bhav you are in, whether you're connected or not. Everything end of the day is for yoga, for connection. Even Vishad Yoga, first chapter where Arjuna is in Vishad, even that has to be used for yoga. As long as you're using everything that comes your way, every VVGP, every feeling, every action, every thought as a way to connect to him, things are fine. We are on the path of Gita.
Just clarity, Vishad is confusion.
Yeah.
Just for the people who may not have been in the chapter.
So I have this morning action or duty of reading newspaper, but it's an action which I enjoy, but given the current situation and the times, most of the times it leaves me very agitated, depressed, and asking a lot of questions, because why there are so many things which is happening in the world which is not in our control. So how do we define that action? Sometimes I feel I should not be, reading the newspapers, but then, not being aware of the current situation is also not something that, you want to live with. So how do we define that action?
So
Because we are not in our control. It is God's control. We will have to go with it and do help whatever we can in the situation.
very true, Vijay, very true. Also, when we are looking at an action, ask yourself if it's a habit or a duty. In the case of like reading a newspaper, why are you reading that newspaper? Why is it necessary to keep abreast of all current affairs? What does it lead to? Why is it so important? That's one question for you to ask and answer. The second is, if something is agitating you, there are only two ways for that. One, either we change the situation that we are in, or we change our attitude towards it. So if we can't change the situation, then we should change our attitude towards it. What is there for us to learn from this? Or if something is going on that you're not happy with, what is in your circle of influence, circle of control, and what can you do to contribute to it? And hence look at whatever is happening as another way to connect to Lord through your own action, which could be anything. It could be your way of contributing through a charity, you doing some shramdan by, I don't know, joining. There are lots of volunteer organizations out there that are doing so many things, right? Including stuff like verifying links to or numbers or connecting people. Or you could just do namdan. You could pray for those people who are going through a tough time. There are so many things that are in your circle of influence and control that you can do. And hence knowing up about this and saying, okay, I have read about some particular person who's been hurt. Can I do something? Can I just keep them in my prayer and pray for them?
Mm-hmm. Right.
We read.
Should I read?
Yeah, no, so
Have you finished?
you finished. Have you finished explaining? Is there anything else you want to add?
No, we haven't. Explain. I thought you are taking this.
No.
Okay, I'll take it. Okay. So the first, so yeah, so I think we have clarified why there are why we need to perform the duty, right? He's said that inaction is not an option for us, and so now he's explaining why it is necessary. The first most important thing is that whether we do something or not do something, an action will get done. Why? Because we are all governed by gunas, and gunas drive it. So if you have any delusion that you are doing something, then that is just that. It is delusion. If you're doing something, you're being compelled to do something because you feel like you want to do something. These are all gunas playing themselves out, especially when you're doing it in a reactive manner. Something's happening and you're just reacting to the situation. These are gunas playing out. Okay, and gunas play out through the prarabdh and through the sanskars that get built in us through various types of habits.
Yeah. So I'll give you I'll give you. I think I gave an example last week, but I observed an example this week as well. I was walking. I was cycling, and on the footpath, and somebody had. I, it came in my consciousness that there was somebody had left a a packet of chips, like an empty packet of chips and an empty beer can on the footpath where I was cycling. Now it entered my consciousness, and I immediately had a thought, oh, maybe I should stop and like pick it up and put it in the dustbin. But I didn't. I said, no, I'm getting late to pick up Vedant. Let me just go to school. All this happens in a fraction of a second, right? Like you're just cycling and just like, yeah, whatever. And I cycled and I moved out. On the way back, cycling with Vedant, um, I again saw that packet of chips and the beer kept there. And I was like, maybe now I should stop and do it. But then Vedant was like, oh, I'm hot and this, I'm angry. You know, he was like being his 5-year-old self. So I was like, fine, whatever. I'll just take him home. And I took him home. The next morning, when I came out to cycle, that chip packet and beer bottle were gone. They were in the dustbin, presumably, right? And that was so when Tuvina is saying this shloka, it hits you hard that that action will get performed whether you do it or not. But did I lost my opportunity to connect with divinity by making his house cleaner by putting it in the dustbin? I don't know if I collected more prarabh because I made that decision. I don't know what all of that will happen, but I can sit here and say I lost that opportunity, right? Because the gunas played out and that action still got resolved. But because I did not engage in it, it was my opportunity that got lost.
And so, if Kumar had to hear this example, he would always say that if this thing was lying there and you passed it without it entering your consciousness, then there is nothing wrong if you did not do anything about it. It never entered your consciousness. It is not meant for you as a duty, it is meant for someone else. And you will walk on and you will go. That's okay. But the fact that it registered with Abhinav, that means it was an opportunity of duty for him. He should have picked it up and should have thrown because, first of all, it became apparent to him, it connected with him, and there were two times that he had that opportunity to do something about it. So there is definitely a certain amount of prarabdha that has got collected. And this is an example of a lot of other things that happen in our life, where we get an opportunity to do something for the community, for the system, and instead we are looking at our own life and saying, oh no, what I am personally doing is slightly more important. I don't have time for this. But the fact that it has come into your consciousness is an indication from him that you have time for it and you must do it. And as long as you have an intent to do it, the resources for this will become available. Whether those resources are time, for example. So in his case, even if he did not pick it up on the way to the school because he was worried about his other duty that my child will be waiting for me, so I should go there, then on the way back, it was an excellent opportunity to show Vedant what a good duty is looks like. Pick up the trash and throw it in the dustbin. It is important. So he lost that opportunity for himself and he lost the opportunity to teach Vedant a good act as well. Sorry.
damage it.
No, I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, wonderful point. Like I'd always been thinking about this, right? Like whether should act or not. This is a beautiful explanation. If you are seeing it, and if your consciousness is giving you a lead, you should act on it. Otherwise, it's not meant for you. You can.
Yeah.
There is a reason it's come in your consciousness, right?
Yeah.
It's like this, right? There are people who get moved by pets a lot. Like for them, like for example, running a dog shelter or taking care of dogs on the roads is very important for them. It doesn't touch me at all. I get moved by other causes, and that's totally fine. So my duty is towards those causes that touch me. Whereas that person who is doing something for the dogs, and you will hear people saying, "Ki, what are you doing? You're spending all this money taking care of dogs. What about other people who are hungry out there? You should be taking care of children." No, I mean, it doesn't, that has no meaning, because that person's duty, he has come into this world to do this. His consciousness is tuned to that particular activity. All of us have different duties.
And
Um,
sorry. Yeah, go ahead, please.
okay, no, Vijay, you can first.
Now, one more point that I also wanted to mention. Time remains 24 hours for everybody at the given point of time. It's about priorities. If I have to do that, I prioritize and do it. So that is another takeaway. When consciousness kick in, sooner the better. Like if we are able to act on it immediately, so that's going to be achieved. Otherwise, as Abhinav mentioned, it's probably getting accumulated somewhere as well.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to help, or I want to know something. So because the litter thing came up, so every first Sunday of the week, so there's a Tanjanguru litter pickup, and I'd been doing it for a few months now, which is like obviously maybe an opportunity or a good act, and you feel good about it. But what I want to know, while you're doing this act and you think that God has chosen you, or maybe Bhagwan has given you this chance to do it, you also, when you are doing that 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, there are so many other people walking. There is that sense of one time it crosses, oh, see, I am doing this. I have a litter bag, I have this tong, and you people are, I'm not saying you look down upon them, but you want like, oh, they must be thinking, see, I'm doing such a good work. So that is also a ego. So does it kind of take away the good work that you do? So how do you like be so neutral that you are not the doer? You should feel good that you were chosen to do this work. So as a human being, how do you do that?
So you've answered your own question in a way, because you know that that thought is ego. So who's that you who knows it? It's your capital S self. You've built your awareness where now you can see the ego, the mind, the senses, the body play with each other and interact with each other. But you still have the awareness to do what you have to do, which is pick up the litter and put it there. But if you went back and you got upset that people are not recognizing you, or people don't think I'm amazing because I'm doing all this work, then you know you've become the ego. The ego, the mind, the senses will always be present, and we just have to build awareness to observe them. They will continue to they will continue to tease you, they'll continue to tempt you, they'll continue to take you in directions they want to go. But it's that awareness that you have built to see it as ego and say, "No, no, I don't, not today. I don't want to indulge in it today."
Also, these pravritti, or the nature, like that this thing that comes up, it's very natural because we are so tied into our egos. So eventually the idea is to identify and eliminate, but the first starting point of that identification and elimination cycle is awareness. Very important, right? And you have already developed that awareness, which is phenomenal. You just have to keep observing yourself doing it, and don't feel bad about it. It's something that all of us do. Just being aware, you're already so many steps ahead. And every time it comes, you become aware, and eventually it will dissolve away. Don't resist it either. Whatever you resist persists. So don't feel bad about it. Don't resist it. No, 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 I don't want to feel it this way. And she's like, yeah, I'm feeling it this way. That's fine. It's okay. This is also gunas playing out. This is just a habit. The gunas are playing themselves out, but I will not attach myself to this thought. I am doing this as a duty, as a seva that Bhagwanji has given me. And I will continue to do it that way. So ego comes in, says something, okay, the thought came, flits away.
Yeah. It's like the example I'd shared about the litter, right? I don't today, right now, sitting here, I don't feel bad about it. I'm not telling myself, Arey, I wish I did it. It was an opportunity. Like, there is none of that. It's just an awareness
Hmm.
that that opportunity came. Ah, I lost it. Now, next time that opportunity comes, you can be guaranteed I will get off that cycle because the awareness now is kicked in. And that's the cycle of learning.
Correct.
And secondly, what Anu mentioned also, right? Like end of it, you feel really happy of what you have. It's not draining. Obviously, you have done a great job. That's a measure that we can live with as
Correct. And that happiness is the reward. That action and the happiness that comes from within is the reward in itself, not acknowledgement from others, right? So, anyway, that's what we are working for.
Yeah,
So,
just to add, a lot of people ask, Kavita and all, like we dance, but we don't get anything in terms of financial gain or something. So, but a lot of people ask that why you guys are dancing, what are you getting? You don't earn money. So this is a feeling, the intangibles, the kind of person we become after getting involved in that classical dance. So that is kind of priceless. So that's what I tell them.
absolutely, because that's your connection to Lord through that activity.
Excuse me, I just kind of feel that that example that you just gave, the littering example, and how when you register something, when you recognize something that you should be doing, I kind of feel that for me, it opens a Pandora's box of sorts. How? Um, I recognize 100 things on a daily basis that one should probably be doing. Nobody can really get involved in all of those things. If you dedicated yourself to those social causes, you could, but then probably you would not be doing your own duty. So just recognition of something that is incorrect cannot be the only cannot be the yardstick one can really apply to be doing action, is what I'm saying. Walking on a beach in India, you'll just find it littered everywhere. But I don't think you could, or you'd be even expected to start cleaning it up. It is probably the duty of the municipality. If you chose to do it on one Sunday morning, that'd be different. But I don't think simply recognition of something that is incorrect can be the yardstick of doing the action, is what I feel.
Sure. You're 100% correct about that. But, so you want to say something?
So, the recognition or being conscious of something will definitely, I think, will definitely be a source of action for you. The fact that you are aware of, filth on a beach or litter on a beach, the first thing, there are various types of actions that can happen. So you don't have to go to the extreme of that you taking on the full responsibility of cleaning the beach, but there is always something that starts from you. Will you be the one contributing to that litter in the first place? So you can definitely make sure that you do not do any action, or in your own little community, if you see somebody doing that action, that you clean it up for them. If you are out on a beach with your friends and your friends start littering, so there are different types of actions. You don't have to go all the way up to something that the only actions I will do are those that will have a global impact, or I will not do any action. There are grades of every action. There are certain activities for which you actually have vibhuti. You got a God's gift, and those are the ones which you must do in the more dedicated manner. There are others. There are other actions that you will do in a much lesser way, at different layers. So everything doesn't have to be taken to an extreme, right? Does that
Yeah,
make
well said. I don't have to be a crusader for everything, right?
Exactly. So you don't have to be, but you can always change your own action. That you are the one who's always putting things in the garbage can when you can. So an action definitely gets taken.
And yeah, and there are going to be things that are not going to move you, just like they won't, like, even I'm apathetic to a lot of things. But what I am getting moved by will be different. And what moves me, I will move towards that action. Right? So you could not be affected maybe by a littered beach, but there will be somebody else who will be so affected that will talk about it the entire day and blame the municipality and blame people and blame. That person is getting so agitated, but they stay in that sorrow and that agitatedness instead of actually doing an action. For me, I could walk on that beach. It doesn't affect me. I'm still in Satagod. I'm still in peace. So be it. Right? All right.
Yeah, okay. So very, very quickly to close this shloka out, the first one we said is that we have to do an action. Now, what type of action? There can be three different types of actions. You can do a forbidden act, a vain act, or something that is called an essential duty. If you perform a forbidden act, then they will cause distress to you down the road. If you do vain acts, then the Lord says that the result is indeterminate. It could go either way. Whereas if you do an essential duty, then the result is going to be positive. So if you look at the different types of actions, the only real course of action from a vyavasaitmika buddhi, an intellect that knows its business and knows how to get the best out of every resource, knows that the only action that I must do is what is an essential duty, because I know for a fact that there is going to be a good outcome of that. As a trader, you would know this is the best use of my resources. And then the third reason is that engagement in activities is necessary for sustenance. This body itself it will not be possible to sustain it without doing activities. Now you have to do some work to earn your livelihood. It is important part of this world. You have to earn money. You have to, have a roof over your head and be able to put food on the table. So you have to do some economic activity towards that. You cannot say that, oh, I will not earn money, because you are a karma yogi, you're part of this world, this is part of the game. But how you earn that money and what impact it creates on you and your life and your mental state is very important. So earn the money. Arth is an important dharma of every human being. You have to earn the money for yourself and for your family, but you have to do it in a dharmic way. Dharma and arth always go together. You must earn arth, but do it with dharma. Do it through performance of essential duties. Okay, we'll move on. Cami, would you like to read, please?
Connection. The question now arises whether the duties enjoined by scriptures as virtuous acts would not lead to compulsive obligations. On this, the Lord says,
Yajnathat karmano anyatra.
Yajnyatat karmano nyatra
Yeah, karmano anyatra.
karmano nyatra.
Lokoyam karma bandhanaha.
Lokoyam karma bandhanat
Tadartham karma kaunteya.
tadartam karma konteya
Mukta sanga samachara.
muttasanga samachara.
Yajnartharth. Yagya bhav se kiya hua. This is a very important word that we will learn more. An action that is done,
Done for
yagya. Okay. Karma is action. Anyatra, any other. So the meaning of this word is any action that is done for any action that is not done as yagya. Any action that is not done as yagya. Lokoyam, in this world, karma bandhan creates a bondage. Tadartham, hence use the yagya bhav, karm, to do action. Kaunteya, the son of Kunti, mukta sangha, asakti rahit hokar, in a way that you are not involved, you're not engaged,
unaffected.
you're unaffected. Samachar, kar, do.
Practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this world, a person gets bound to the outcome of actions other than those done in pursuance of yajna. So, O Kaunteya, do perform your duties assiduously, unaffected by the outcome.
So here it's broken it down really clearly, right? That you get bound by action. This action and reaction, cause and effect is there, and you get bound by it unless you do it with pursuance of yajna. So now what is yajna? We will read about that and we will talk a bit more about it.
Another important thing is that the word he's used here, right? Every time he refers to Arjuna with a certain name, there is a meaning to it. So he's referring to Arjuna in this shloka as Kaunteya. Kaunteya, son of Kunti. And Kunti is the daughter of Pritha. She's also called Pritha, daughter of Prithvi, daughter of earth. So the densest of the five materials that create this universe. So when he's referring to him as Konteya, he's basically saying that you, as a person who is attached to this material world, you, the dweller of this material world. So he's referring to that part of him, not the subtle parts of him. He's referring and he's hard hitting the grossest part of him, the gross part of you that does vicharan, that behaves or lives in this world and is attached to this world. Okay.
It's a very good point.
And the word yagya that has been referred to here, typically we hear the word yagya being used in the concept in the context of havan. So we think of setting up a divine fire for puja, for for invoking of gods. There are oblations being poured into that fire, and these are typically done with the idea of some kind of obtaining some kind of results out of that. And there are lots of different yagyas that have been prescribed in our scriptures. And they say that, okay, you want a son, you want a daughter, you want some kind of success in some activity, then do these types of different yagyas. Okay. But the word yagya here is actually of a much higher and a much subtler meaning. But it gets the meaning from the same concept. Okay. So, what is yagya here? Yagya is basically actions that are done as an offering to God. So the fire here is basically the God himself. Fire is God himself. And the oblations are every single activity, thought, bhav, emotion, everything that you're doing as a process of it. And so when we say that you do something with yagya bhav, in karma yoga, now we will hear of yagya bhav a lot. So every time you'll say, why are we reading Gita? We are reading Gita to learn our swadharma. How should we do swadharma? With yagya bhav. This is in one line as to why are we reading Gita. Okay. So yagya bhav basically means doing your essential duty, doing it selflessly.
So these are the characteristics of yajna bhav, of
Yeah.
an act done with yajna.
Yeah.
So so she's defining when you'll know you're doing something with yajna or not with yajna.
So what is a yagya and how to do it with yagya bhav? Very similar concepts. So what is a yagya? Any act that is done as an offering to God is yagya. And yagya bhav is when you start with tyag buddhi, give up the conceit of doership, and you don't do something because of likes or dislikes, but you do it because it's an essential duty. You do it for lokhit, selflessly, as a seva, and you do it with God's energy. So it is not coming from you, it is coming through you. The energy is coming through you. You are not the source, you are just a medium. And you're doing it for God's happiness. You're not doing it for your own acclaim. You're not doing it for certain result that will get accrued after that. And then whatever becomes available to you after all of this has been done with that right bhav is the yagya shesh. What remains after yagya? You take it with prasad buddhi. So you consume yagya shesh. Now, that result could be a favorable outcome that you were working towards. Maybe you were working towards getting a certain promotion. Maybe that comes through. But you, as long as you did it with the right purpose and you were not attached to that result of a promotion, if it comes, prasad buddhi, you thank God, be grateful for it. If it doesn't come, there is a learning here for us. We continue to do you. It doesn't make you upset or angry. You continue to do your duties accordingly. So if you have to, end of the day, whatever comes to you, don't reject that result. It is yagyashesh, it is prasad from Lord, and whatever comes, consume it with that gratefulness. So we'll read.
Performance of actions for yagya, similarity with Havan. In this important shloka, mention has been made of the word yagya. Acts which are performed as yagya are those which fall in the category of essential duties, which are performed strictly according to prescribed procedures, and the result of which is dedicated to the Lord. Ordinarily, the word yagya signifies the ritual of Havan. In Havan, first the fire is lighted, then oblations are poured into it, and then they are dedicated to God. If a person lights up the fire of virtuous acts in the shape of duties and, and dedicates the result of the acts to God, the performance of the duties of daily life becomes a splendid yagya. This is why in this shloka, the Lord explains that if acts are performed not for fulfillment of any desires, but for dedication to God and in accordance with prescribed procedures, then such acts really merit the status of yagya. Yagya is in fact a form of God in his functional aspect of Vishnu, which manifested for the protection of existence.
And so this last part is very important. When we think of God, right, they are in Hinduism, you typically have the Trimurti. We have Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. Brahma is supposed to be the creative energy of God. He's a manifestation of God. He's not God himself, he's a manifestation of God, manifestation of the creative energy, the one who created this world. Vishnu is the sustainer, the one who maintains everything. And Maheshwara, Shankar, is the destroyer, right? And all three of them are essential for this world to continue. We create, we maintain, and then there is destruction of what is no longer important or required or is bad. Okay. So here, Yagya is basically a form of Vishnu, which is the maintenance factor in this world. And how, we will read in the next shloka. But again, in this context, you will realize that because we are all parts of Him, right? So we all have these things within us. So you will recognize Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara inside all of us, which we must invoke on a daily basis. When you are creating something gross like cooking food, you are invoking Brahma's energy. You're being the creator here. In another gross, at a gross level, but also at a subtler level, when you're creating a progeny, that itself is an act of Brahma. It is Brahma acting through you. When you're creating a new thought, a new project, that is Brahma's energy being invoked. When you're creating a new project, when they say, no, you create something out of nothing. That's how the first thought gets created, and then you create a whole new project, right? So these are all Brahma's energies being manifested in us. Then Vishnu, how does Vishnu comes through us? Vishnu are all these activities of sustenance we do. You're indulging in your livelihood, this is Vishnu. You're indulging in maintenance of your home, something breaks down, you need to go and fix it. This is Vishnu's energy. Anything that helps you in maintaining the order of the world, all the essential duties, whether this is you being in a certain relationship that you have to maintain towards your parents, towards your family, whatever. These are all most of the activities are Vishnu's activities. And then comes Maheshwara, when you throw your old things out of the house, right? Because they are no longer of use any longer. You, or at a subtler level, when you're killing out, you're finding the Kaurava tendencies inside of you and you're eliminating them. You, like what Kakoli said, identification of that ego that has become like a Ravan inside of you. Ravan, by the way, is that epitome of ego, right? So eliminating those, that is Maheshwara. He's acting through us. When we take a call of ending something, a bad habit, that's Maheshwara. So we all have those aspects of God being manifested through us because we are his children. And the more we clean our antakaran through our sadhana, the closer we become to him and higher our ability to implement or to influence this world through these three energies that act through us. Because the higher the God tattva becomes in us, higher is our ability to create something or to sustain something or to destroy what is not good. So our influence, circle of influence will keep increasing as our own sadhana increases. So we'll stop here today because the next shloka is going to take a bit of time. 10 and 11, very, very important shlokas.
So one question which I just want to be know. So mean all are the part of our duties. So all are the part of which whatever we are doing in our duties, right? So all are the part of word yagya, right?
Yes. They
Okay.
become yagya when we do them with the right bhav.
Right path.
Yeah. So yagya bhav is what makes an action into a yagya, essentially. So any act, bring yagya bhav into it, it becomes yagya. That is how we do puja of Lord. When we say kirtan, right, we have to do shravan, we do manan, we do nidhi. Eventually we'll do kirtan. Kirtan is singing Lord's glories 24/7. And how do we sing Lord's glories? You're not going to go around the world singing bhajans. Doing every action with the yagya bhav is the kirtan. If you can be in yagya bhav at all points of time, is the real is the real thing that God wants. That is the kirtan. So we can do the end shlokas, closing shlokas. You can read.
Yeah, just one second. Okay. Om Sarvesham Swastirbhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukh Bhag Bhavet Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
So as a last thought, just because we read this Yagya Bhav, right? I was just thinking, even these small things like reading these end invocation shlokas, right? How we do it? Do we just do it as like, something that is just there and we just do it as we just saying the words, right? On the other hand, if we bring it in with Yagya Bhav, then you will realize how true these shlokas are to everything and you bring them into your life. So when you are invoking the first two end shlokas, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Swastir Bhavatu, Shantir Bhavatu, Mangalam Bhavatu, Purnam Bhavatu, and then Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. You actually invoke them with that Yagya Bhav, with a lot of feeling. The amount of energy you are giving out to this world, especially when it needs the most, is really, really high. That's why it is very important to know the meaning of the shlokas. So you all have the PDFs which explain the meaning of them. Please do go through it and keep the meaning in mind going when you're reading these invocation shlokas. They really are powerful. They will have a small benefit if we do not keep that meaning in mind. They have an extraordinarily powerful focusing impact if you keep that meaning in mind. Keep it going. You're actually doing a lot of nam dan this way. And then the invocation of Asuto Ma Sadgamaya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. This is a this is what we are doing through Gita, going from asat to sat, from tamas to light, from darkness to light, and from mortal to yeah, and from mortal to immortality. That is our journey. And end of the day, the last one, Purnamada Purnamidam. This is a very powerful shloka. You will realize it in waves as you slowly go through this journey, how powerful the shloka is and what it talks to you about, how you are whole and complete. And so is everyone else around you, just the way they are, with all the faults and all the goodness that is there in them, because they are part of Lord. I am whole and complete, you are whole and complete. It's a very, very powerful thought in self acceptance and in acceptance of others with everything that they represent. So I'll request you all to go through every shloka and their meaning. If there's anything unclear, we are very happy to have a chat. Please send a message to me or Abhinav. But keep this meaning going in your mind when we are doing the shlokas, when we are reading them at the beginning, at the end of the class. That's all. Narayan, Narayan.
Narayan, Narayan.
Have a good Sunday.
Yeah, Narayan, Narayan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.